Hey everyone, get ready because today we're diving headfirst into a whole bunch of news coming straight out of India. We've got a stack of headlines hot off the press from February 11th, 2025. And let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack. From trade wars to box office hits, even a bit of controversy.
Yeah, it's a real mix. Gives you a sense of what's going on in India right now.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Pull out the most interesting bits and connect the dots. So, first up, Prime Minister Modi is planning to cut tariffs on some U.S. goods. What's the deal with that?
Well, this is a pretty big move, especially with Modi meeting with President Trump soon, basically. The U.S. and China have been in this trade war, slapping extra fees on each other's products, and Modi is offering these tariff cuts, kind of like saying, hey, we want to work with you, and we're going to make it easier for American companies to sell their stuff in India.
Seems like a strategic move to get closer to the U.S., especially with that other headline about India maybe increasing energy and defense imports from the U.S. too.
Yeah, it's all about give and take on the world stage, right? India wants to be a major player, and that means balancing relationships with countries like the U.S. and China.
For sure. Speaking of balancing acts, let's talk cricket. The ICC Champions Trophy is coming up, and I gotta say, this one headline made me laugh. English cricketer Ben Duckett said he'd be totally fine with losing the current series against India, as long as they win the trophy.
I get it. For a cricketer, the Champions Trophy is like the ultimate prize. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And speaking of big deals in cricket, legendary bowler Mutia Muralitharan is predicting that India and Pakistan are the favorites to win it all.
Oh, wow. That's a serious prediction. When Muralitharan talks, everyone listens. And honestly, it's not that surprising. Both teams are playing really well,
Yeah.
and the conditions should work in their favor.
Totally. And all eyes will be on Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. Talk about pressure. But there was another thing that caught my eye in the cricket news. They mentioned spinners like Rashid Khan and Ravindra Jadeja potentially playing a key role.
Oh, yeah. They could totally change the game, especially with the conditions we're expecting in Pakistan and Dubai. The way they can make that ball turn and trick the batsman, crucial.
All right, let's move from the cricket pitch to the world of business. This headline really got me thinking. Capital Land. It's this huge Singaporean real estate company. And they're shifting their focus from China to India.
Interesting. We're seeing this a lot, actually. Global companies want to branch out, and India's booming economy is a huge attraction. Think about it. A growing middle class,
Wow.
a young population. Everyone needs a place to live and work. It's a recipe for a real estate boom.
Makes sense. And Capital Land's putting their money where their mouth is. They're expanding their international tech park in Bangalore.
Bangalore, India's Silicon Valley. It's a hub for tech and innovation. Capital Land's betting on India's tech scene to keep growing and attracting those big global players.
Smart move. Which brings us to the AI revolution. This headline blew my mind. Apparently, AI could boost the Indian software industry's productivity by like 43% to 45%. We're not just talking about automation here. This is a whole new way of doing things.
Oh, yeah. This is all about Gen AI, generative artificial intelligence. It can write code, test software, even design user interfaces. Imagine AI doing all the hard work, leaving the human developers to do the complex creative stuff.
Wow. The article said software development roles would see the biggest boost. Like 60%. I know you're thinking, are robots taking our jobs?
Right, but it's not that simple. It's about adapting, learning new skills. AI is a tool, like any tool. It's about using it the right way. The Indian software industry is known for being adaptable and talented. This could be their chance to lead the way in the AI revolution.
Interesting way to look at it. Okay, let's switch gears for a sec. This next story is causing quite a stir. There's a call to ban this YouTube show called India's Got Latent because of some offensive remarks a guest made on the show.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough situation. Free speech is complicated, especially in the digital age. Humor is powerful, but you gotta be careful. Our words have an impact, especially when they reach a global audience.
Yeah, and in this case, both the comedian who hosts the show and the guest apologized. There's even a formal complaint filed.
Right. It shows that even online, there are consequences for hate speech or inciting violence. It also raises the question of how to regulate digital content without stopping creativity and free expression.
Tough balance. Speaking of tough balances, the Supreme Court is questioning the 6-year ban for politicians who are convicted of crimes. They're suggesting a lifetime ban instead.
Wow. This is big. You got to understand, a lot of Indian lawmakers have criminal charges against them. The Supreme Court's saying, look, if you break the law, you shouldn't be making the law. It's about keeping the political system honest and accountable.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers, it's kind of shocking. 251 out of 543 Lok Sabha MPs. That's almost half.
It's true. And it's made worse by these long trials. Cases can drag on for years, even decades. So these accused politicians stay in office. The idea of having special courts to speed things up is a good step.
Definitely a step towards cleaning things up. All right, let's talk about the elections. Mamata Banerjee had some strong words for the Congress and AAP parties. She's blaming them for the BJP's recent victories.
Yeah, this shows how hard it is to create a united opposition against the BJP. She's basically saying that Congress and AAP need to be more flexible and strategic if they want to beat the ruling party.
She called out their inflexibility as the reason for the BJP's wins in those recent assembly elections.
Right, she's pushing for a more practical approach.
And she's backing it up with action. She's saying that her party, the Trinamool Congress, is going to go solo in the upcoming state elections.
Bold move. We'll have to see how that plays out.
For sure. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's check out some entertainment news. Naga Chaitanya's new film, Thandal, is killing it at the box office.
36 crore opening weekend. That's massive. People are loving this movie. It's great for the Indian film industry.
The article even said that Thandal is going to be a clean hit with a global box office target of over 70 crore.
Wow, what a success story.
It is. Okay, this next story really warmed my heart. Gautam Adani and his family are investing in 2 affordable healthcare campuses, one in Mumbai and one in Ahmedabad.
This is huge for healthcare in India. Access to good healthcare is a major challenge for a lot of people, especially in rural areas or if they don't have a lot of money. This investment is a big step towards fixing that.
And they're working with the Mayo Clinic, one of the best healthcare institutions in the world.
That shows how serious they are about building top-notch healthcare facilities. Think about the impact this could have, not just on providing care, but also on medical education and research.
It's amazing to see private investment making a real difference. But the article also mentions some opposition that Adani faces for his other projects.
That's true. He's a bit of a controversial figure. People criticize his business practices and his environmental record. It's a reminder that even with good intentions, things aren't always simple.
Yeah, nothing's black and white, even when it comes to something as important as healthcare. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the India political bloc. Things seem a bit up in the air right now.
Yeah, the results of the Delhi Assembly polls have definitely shaken things up, especially with AAP's losses. Sanjay Singh, one of their main leaders, even said that the party's future in the bloc is uncertain.
So we'll have to wait and see. What are your thoughts on all this?
It shows how quickly political alliances can change in India. These blocs usually form with a specific goal in mind, like beating a certain party in an election. But once that goal is achieved, or if they hit a wall, things can get fragile.
And with the general elections coming up in 2024, the stakes are high. What does all this mean for the India bloc, and how will it affect the upcoming elections? We'll dive into all that after a quick break. Stay tuned.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
Okay, so we're back, and we were just talking about that India political bloc and all the uncertainty around it.
Yeah, it's a wild ride watching these political alliances shift, especially with that general election coming up. What AAP decides to do after their losses could really change how the opposition goes up against the BJP.
It's true, things change so fast in politics. But let's talk about something a little more positive for a sec. I was really impressed by that story about Gautam Adani and his family investing in those affordable healthcare campuses.
Oh yeah, me too. It's an incredible initiative. I think it really shows that people are starting to pay attention to the inequality in healthcare access in India. Quality healthcare shouldn't be a luxury. It should be a right. And their investment, plus that partnership with the Mayo Clinic, is huge for making that happen.
Exactly. It's nice to hear about people making a real difference in the world amidst all the politics and economic stuff.
For sure, those stories give you hope for a better future for everyone.
Speaking of a better future, remember that headline about AI potentially changing the Indian software industry? I was a bit skeptical at first, but hearing you explain that whole Gen AI thing, I'm starting to see the potential.
It's pretty groundbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've been stuck in this world where humans write code line by line for years, but Gen AI is all about teaching machines to understand the logic behind it all, so they can generate and test software so much faster and more efficiently.
So it's not about replacing human developers, it's about giving them superpowers.
Exactly. Free them up from the boring, repetitive stuff, so they can focus on the big picture, the creative side of software development.
Makes sense. It's all about working smarter, not harder. And it sounds like the Indian software industry is in a great position to lead the way in this AI revolution.
Totally. They have the talent and the track record of innovation. Of course, there are challenges like making sure everyone has the skills to work in this new AI-powered world.
Yeah.
But I'm optimistic.
Me too. Okay, so earlier we talked about Modi cutting tariffs on U.S. goods seems like a good way to get closer to the U.S., but are there any downsides? Could this backfire?
It's a good question. We can't forget that India also has strong ties with China. Favoring U.S. goods could upset that balance and maybe even cause some tension with China.
So it's a delicate balancing act.
It is, and it shows how complex global trade and diplomacy can be. Every decision has a ripple effect. It's about finding the right balance to protect your own interests while navigating everyone else's.
Right. That story about the call to ban the YouTube show India's Got Latent really made me think. It's about freedom of speech, but also about using that freedom responsibly.
It's a tough one. There's no easy answer. The internet has given everyone a voice, which is amazing for sharing ideas and connecting with people. But it also means that offensive and harmful content can spread quickly.
Yeah, and where do you draw the line? When does humor become hate speech? It's a question the whole world is struggling with.
Absolutely. And it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
As technology and the way we communicate evolve,
Yeah.
we have to keep rethinking our values and norms. And that includes figuring out how to protect both free speech and people from hate speech and online harassment.
No easy answers there. Let's go back to politics for a minute. Remember the Supreme Court questioning that 6-year ban for convicted politicians.
Mhm.
What would a lifetime ban mean for India?
Oh, it could be a total game changer. It would send a strong message that crime has no place in government. It might even stop people with criminal records from going into politics in the first place.
But wouldn't that also be unfair to voters who want to support those candidates?
That's a fair point, and it's a debate that'll probably go on for a while. It's about finding that balance between keeping the political system clean and making sure voters have a voice.
It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Before we move on, I wanted to mention that story about Nagar Chaitanya's film Thandal, doing so well at the box office. It's always exciting to see Indian cinema thriving.
Absolutely, and Sandal's success shows the power of great storytelling and the talent in the Indian film industry. It also highlights the global reach of Indian films, with people all over the world enjoying them.
It's not just entertainment either. Movies can spark important conversations and challenge social norms.
Oh, for sure, they can be a real force for change. They can transport us to new worlds, make us laugh, make us cry, make us think. And in a country as diverse as India, cinema plays a huge role in shaping its identity.
And with all the streaming services, Indian films and TV shows are reaching even more people than ever before.
It's an exciting time for Indian entertainment. I can't wait to see what's next. Before we move on, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned about Modi cutting tariffs on U.S. goods.
Oh, yeah. The potential impact on India's relationship with China.
Right. China's a major trading partner for India.
Hmm.
And any move that seems to favor the U.S. could ruffle some feathers. It could lead to retaliation from China, which could hurt India's economy.
It's like a high-stakes chess match.
It is, and it shows the tightrope India has to walk in its foreign policy. They want to be friends with the U.S., but they don't want to make China angry.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot.
Every move has consequences.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to stay informed, understand these complex issues, and have these discussions.
Well said. So we've covered a lot today, from politics and economics to technology and entertainment. What are your main takeaways from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is just how dynamic India is right now. Economic growth, technological advancements, political shifts, social change. It's all happening at once.
Like a country in fast forward.
Exactly. And it can be hard to see the big picture when you're focused on the day-to-day news. That's why I think these deep dives are so important. By looking at all these seemingly separate stories together, you start to see how they're all connected. Like Modi cutting tariffs on U.S. goods isn't just about economics. It affects India's relationships with other countries.
And it's not just international relations either. Those healthcare campuses being built by the Adani family could change healthcare in India for the better. It shows that even with all the chaos, there are people working to make things better.
Definitely. And we can't forget about the tech world. AI could completely transform the Indian software industry. But it also raises questions about the future of work and the need for education to keep up with all these changes.
India is at a turning point. It's on track to become a global superpower. But it's also dealing with a lot of challenges like poverty, inequality, climate change, and political division.
And the choices made by its leaders, businesses, and people in the next few years will determine what happens next.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What do you think the future holds for India? How will it shape the world in the years to come?
It's a big question. We've given you some things to think about, some insights into what's happening in India today. Now it's your turn to connect the dots, draw your own conclusions, and stay curious.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a different part of the world. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.
The world is full of complexities and contradictions. It's up to all of us to stay informed, think critically, and talk about the things that matter.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey. We've been all over the place today, huh? From trade deals to AI to movies, it feels like we've covered the whole of India in just a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
So what are your final thoughts? As we wrap up this deep dive, what stands out to you the most?
I think what really gets me is just how complex India is right now. It's like a country of opposites. You've got ancient traditions and super advanced technology existing side by side, extreme poverty and incredible wealth, and it's all changing so fast.
Yeah, it's like watching a country transform right in front of you. But with all that change, it's easy to get lost in the headlines and miss the bigger picture.
That's where I think these deep dives are so helpful. When you look at all these different stories together, you start to see how they're all connected, like Modi cutting tariffs on U.S. goods. It's not just an economic decision. It affects India's relationships with other countries like China.
Right, and it's not just about international relations either. Think about those affordable healthcare campuses that the Adani family is building. That could totally change healthcare in India. It's a reminder that even with all the problems, there are people working to make things better.
For sure, and we can't forget about technology. AI has the potential to revolutionize the Indian software industry. But it also makes you wonder about the future of work and whether education and training can keep up with all the changes.
It seems like India is at a really important point in its history. It could become a global superpower, but it's also facing so many challenges, like poverty, inequality, climate change, political division.
It's true. And the decisions made by India's leaders, businesses, and people in the next few years will shape the future of the country.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What do you think the future holds for India? What kind of role will it play in the world?
It's a tough question, but a good one. We've given you some things to consider, some ideas about what's happening in India today. Now it's up to you to form your own conclusions and stay curious.
That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll be back soon with another exploration of a different part of the world. Until then, keep learning and keep those questions coming.